Today is April 10th, 1995. I'm Ellie Gooch, and I have the privilege of having Joan Shatney here at my house. We're going to kind of reminisce and talk a little bit and have some fun. Anyhow, so that's my introduction, Joan, and away we go. It's so great to have you here. As I spoke earlier, I have always wanted to find out more about your background and the Second World War and all these things. But when I see you, it never is, it's not convenient just to, leap right into something. But anyhow, I've got you here a captive tonight, so away we go. Well, you were born in England. No. There, we'll set that record straight right off quick.
No, I was born in Calcutta.
Okay. Right. And how far, my geography is very poor.
Okay. Calcutta, if you're looking at India, it's about a third of the way up from the bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where I was born.
You were born there.
Yes.
How did that happen? Was your father in the working there? Or?
Yes, he was working there. He was. My mother was born, brought up, and educated in India. She's English, but
she was born in. Now this is all news to me.
Yes, she was, and in French India.
Yes.
Her parents were something to do with the government. I don't know what.
No.
And my dad was English born.
Yes.
In the county of Wiltshire. So when he was 2, his family immigrated to Canada. And then the First War came. So he lied about his age, and in those days you could do that. He and his high school buddy, unknown to their parents, went down and signed up in the Canadian Army.
Is that right?
Then they went home and told their parents.
After the fact.
After the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he ended up in the First War in France.
Yes.
And in the meantime, my mother, like all good Brits, everybody came home to the mother country when the war broke out.
Right.
And figure the odds. Somehow they met. And then my father was wounded and all this.
Your father got wounded in that First World War? Badly.
Yeah, badly. And so then he came back to England, and then he got a job. He took his demobilization in England. He got a job, some government job, in the Middle East. So he went out to what was then Mesopotamia.
For Pete's sakes, you don't hear much about that anymore. No.
See, Mesopotamia is what, Iran, isn't it?
I think so. I think it's
Iran.
We used to hear about it.
Yeah, because he was in Abadan, where the British developed the oil.
Abadan. So
he was out there on government service. Then he came back to England, and then he and my mother decided they were going to marry in Canada.
And now they had kept in touch.
Evidently, they must have kept in touch somehow.
Somehow, and they decided to marry.
So instead of getting married in England, he went back to Canada. And then she did the unheard of, all those years ago. She crossed unmarried woman on a boat, and they were married in Windsor, Ontario.
I'll be that. That was very adventuresome.
Oh, you better believe.
You know.
And, so then he was working in Detroit at the Hupmobile, which is a car, I guess.
That's so funny you mentioned that, because I interviewed Miss Greer up at the nursing home, and she was telling me about going to California in a Hupmobile, and I'd never heard of it. And we had quite a time over that, but it's H-U-P. Yep.
Hupmobile.
And so he worked.
Yeah, he worked for that.
Oh, I'm thrilled to hear that.
So this is back now. I was born in 1927, so
yes.
This is prior 1927, and I guess the Depression was coming.
Yes.
And jobs were at a premium, and then my grandmother had gone back to India after the war.
She had gone back.
My mother wanted to see her. You see, she wanted to see her mother.
Yes.
And jobs were not very scarce.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, they decided to go to India, go back to my mother, but not for my father.
No.
He got a job. He was offered the job of opening up a branch for the Italian car Fiat
Yes.
They say Fiat.
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
Fiat.
Fiat.
So he had the first Fiat
Yeah.
factory in India.
In India.
Yeah. So he
This
was
is all
from that.
news. This is
Oh, yeah.
fascinating. Yeah.
So, and my mother was pregnant with me. And so 4 days after they landed, I was born. So I was born in Calcutta.
Is that the? Oh, that is no. I never knew any of this.
And it's a good thing she went back because my grandmother, I was 3 weeks old and she died.
Oh, you got just back in the nick of
In
time.
the nick of time.
Yeah.
So then I had a sister who was born in Madras
Yes.
2 years later. And then...
You've got quite a background
God.
here.
Think of the odds of Rudy and me getting together.
I know this is, boy, we're really in for a treat here. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then my father, so long ago, I was 5. But anyway, he was fine. Everything was going great. And we had moved to Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Lived in Colombo. And I know we lived with my mother's brother.
There.
I remember that. And because my father got ill, TB, and it was from being shot half an inch from the heart in the
First World War.
And it didn't show up till if I was born in 27. So sometime after 1927, maybe 1930. So he had to, 27, 32. Because he had to leave India, because in those days, the climate, they had no drugs or anything for TB. And so he was going to come back to Canada because he always considered himself Canadian.
That was really home for
That was
him.
home. He was there
Yes.
from the age of 2, fought for Canada, and wounded for Canada.
Basically a Canadian in his heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we were going to come. I was 5, my sister was 3. And we could not take a boat from Colombo to Halifax because there was no doctor on board. So they said, no, you will have to detour to Southampton, England, wait a couple of days, pick up a boat called the Empress of Britain, and come to Halifax. So, as they tell me, we got as far as Southampton. The Canadian government said, you have been out of Canada more than 9 years, and you are not a Canadian, and you have active TB, and you cannot enter.
They wouldn't let you in.
No. So that's why I grew up in England.
So then, how...
We were stuck in England. Instead of staying 2 days...
They wouldn't take you, and so you just stayed.
We had to stay. They paid my father's pension. They paid anywhere in the world, but they wouldn't let him into Canada.
Yeah, I understand.
And so we were there 14 years.
Now, what year was that
Be,
roughly,
32.
1932. And so then you folks just settled in.
We settled in. My father went into because all they could do in those days, sanatorium. So
yes, he had to go into it.
Yeah, for 2 years in Southampton. And then for the climate, we moved to Cornwall, which is subtropical. It's the Cornish Riviera.
Yeah.
Palm trees, camellias, magnolias. That's where I grew up. And because of the weather.
Yes.
No snow, no.
And he was able to stay right there at home.
Well, he went into the sand for a while. And then it was called an arrested case. It wasn't active.
Right.
But the climate. So he was at home. My brother was born.
So you've got a brother as well.
7 years younger than I. And so we stayed, of course, 32. Then 39, the war broke out. And then nobody could leave, even if you wanted to, even if we could have. And so for the next 6 years, it was wartime England. And my father was exempt from anything, but he wouldn't stay exempt. So, he ran the civil defense for the village.
No, yeah, that kind.
Thing.
Yeah, he was very involved.
Yeah, very. And then just before the end of the war, 1940, I was married in 45. About 1944, he developed TB of the spine.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. So into the sanatorium. And of course, the only cure in those days was you stayed outdoors 24 hours a day.
Right.
And they just put a top down when it rained. And he was this gigantic. And he got a natural fusion of the spine. And he had the first brace of its kind they invented. They told him he'd never walk again. But he said, I will. And so they invented this brace again, that you carried the weight of your body on your hip bones.
Wow.
And he not only walked, he ran. He wore that thing for 17 years. He was in the hospital when I was married.
He very determined man.
Oh, determined. Yeah.
Meanwhile, your mother was hanging in there. And
She nursed him, and so forth. And she just, I think she sort of wore out. She died before he did, long before he did.
Despite all his...
all this stuff. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but she gave out, yeah.
And in 1943, we got American troops. We were the last to get American troops. Because you know where Cornwall is. Here's England.
Yes.
London. A long peninsula like this. We're at the very end. 250 miles southwest of London. So we were going to be handed over, that we had no defenses whatsoever.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And we thought, gee whiz, we got nothing, we had these beautiful beaches, like Hawaii.
Yeah.
And they put these tree trunks, they pound them into the sand to stop gliders,
yes.
gliders. And we had some barbed wire, and we had these imitation gun sights. All they were just cinder block and tree trunks painted to look like guns, and they'd move them up and move them down. If anybody was flying over,
do you yourself, remember all that?
Yeah.
Vividly?
Oh, vividly. See, because I
was going to say
I was 7 when I got to Cornwall.
Yeah.
And I was 7.
Yeah.
And so then, when you got to be 16, you had to enroll in a pre-service training unit because everybody was called up, men and women.
In England,
there was no choice.
No.
If you were healthy.
You had to register and then they would call you.
They'd call you. You couldn't be sent out of the country till you were 18.
Yes.
But from the age of 16, you enrolled in a pre-service training.
Which you had to do, Joan.
Which I did. I went, I am the world's worst sailor, but I thought I'd stay on dry land. I joined the Wrens.
Yeah. You did join the Wrens?
Yeah, well, the pre-service Wrens.
Yeah.
The war ended before I got old enough to
really get into it. Yeah, yeah.
But I was in the Signal Corps.
Is that right?
Oh, God, yes. But it wasn't anything unusual. Everybody was doing something. And if you were, now like us today, we'd be a little bit, we're over 45.
Yeah.
Every citizen in England, if they were healthy, if you were a kid, 16 and up, you had to be in a pre-service training unit. If you were a housewife or a household or a man, between the ages of 18 to 45, you had to be in either civil defense, air raid warden, fire guard.
Everybody did something.
Was in something. You had to be in something.
Yeah.
And because there just weren't enough people to go around.
No, absolutely.
So I went to, and of course we go to school earlier. We go to school at 5.
That was because of the darkness?
No, I meant earlier in age.
You got going earlier in age?
Yeah. From the age of, you go to school, you go to grammar school from the age of 5 until you are 11. And I don't know if they do that now, but this is what
at that time it was because of nothing to do with the war. This was just the way it was.
And then when you were 11, you took a test. And if you passed it, you went immediately to high school. And if you didn't pass it, you went a year later anyway.
Yeah. But
But the only thing I think is most unfair because it didn't allow for late bloomers.
Mm-hmm.
And it also is very unfair because anybody who passed the test, which I did, could have been university, that you had a chance to go to university, which was a crock because I never even knew anybody. It wasn't even on the horizon to go to university.
It wasn't.
No.
It wasn't open.
There was no money.
Yeah.
There was no money. And I never knew anybody that ever went to university. Never.
It's funny, isn't it, really? When you think about it, it's kind of funny.
So I went to high school at 11,
You went to high school at 11, yeah.
14, you're out.
And would you take, courses like we would take here? I mean,
Well, not the same. Not in my day. You got far less, there's no such thing as study hall.
Never a study hall?
No. You were in school, you did schoolwork. You did your homework at home.
I see.
And there was not too much spare time of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
And the last half of Friday afternoon was set aside for games, but not to the extent that you play here.
No.
And with all these teams.
Pretty much study.
Yeah, it was study.
It was study. And would they emphasize languages more than
We didn't get language.
You didn't?
No. I just went to a public school, and I don't mean public school English. In England, if you're going to a public school, it's a private school.
Okay.
Exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
I just went to the regular day school.
Right.
So we had no money for
No.
school.
No.
No way.
No.
My father had the princely sum of $60 a month.
Yeah. No. No. No.
Pension.
No.
He was paid at the rate of the lowest paid government worker in Canada, which was a janitor in the post office.
You're
that
kidding.
Was his pension.
Jeez.
So we didn't get
no frills. No frills. No.
So, and you don't get any graduation and all this business.
No.
You just leave school.
Well, did you resent this, or this was just the way it was?
Didn't even think about it.
No, it's just the way it is.
That's the way it is.
Didn't even think about it.
One of my friends was the mayor's daughter. She didn't go to college.
She went just like you went.
Yes.
Yeah, and nobody worried about it.
No,
This is the way it
that's the way
is.
it was.
I'll be
Yeah.
damned.
And of course, then there was, it's kind of silly too, because there's this gap. And my sister always wanted to be a nurse. In fact, she was a nurse. But you couldn't start being a nurse until you were 18. But you're out of school at 14.
So what do you do in those 4 years?
I know. And your pension, the allowance that my father got, which the Canadian government did not pay him for the longest time until some lady in the village
insisted or really tracked it down.
Yeah. And so she went to commercial school the way I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how my father found the money, but I went to commercial
But he did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he sounds like kind of a resourceful man to me.
So I had a year and a half of commercial school, which was not like your commercial schools over here.
No.
It was it was run by two maiden ladies, and it was a private school. And it was run just like an office. Just exactly like an office.
I'll be damned.
And you were only there if you progressed. If you did not make progress, she would ask your parents to remove you.
I'll be damned.
So you had to go up at least 10 words a minute in shorthand each term, and so many words a minute in typing, I forget. And you had to show progress,
or else they let you go.
because or else you tell your parents if they wanted to keep on paying for you.
Yes.
Because a lot of them, they didn't know what to do with these girls, and they were wealthy, and so they just kept them in school. And one girl had been there 5 years.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
But she said she wouldn't place you, because the school was called Wesley's, Olive Wesley. And if you were a Wesley girl, you had entree to any.
Because that was really well thought of.
Yeah. And so she wouldn't place you.
No.
And so I was there a year and a half. And I got placed. I never went back. I went to work for a lawyer. Rifle age of 15 and a half.
You're out kind of on your own.
Yeah, well, I was living at home. But
you made your own money. And
yeah, $10 a week.
Yeah.
In those days.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Well, Joan, meanwhile, the war was still
the war was
trudging along.
Oh, yes, the war. I left the law office. It was bombed.
The law office was
It was
bombed.
Yeah, and I left the law, and then I stayed there a while, but I left and I went to work for the St. Ives. Penzance is on the Channel side, Pirates of Penzance, and St. Ives is on the Atlantic side, and they're 10 miles apart. And the land where we lived was in the middle. So I went to work for the Bar Council of St. Ives, and this was when they needed people to train. I went to work for the fire guard officer. This was, and had to train people to defend their homes.
Okay.
Against incendiary bomb attacks.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So I went to work doing that for, I don't know, it wasn't too long.
Would you drive back and forth, or
Bus.
You go by bus?
Yeah, because I was just.
Yeah. No. I was going to say.
Yeah. Well, nobody had any cars anyway.
Anyway, or gas or anything.
Or gas.
Yeah.
So with the rationing.
Mm-hmm.
And or my bike. Everybody had
Yeah, bike all the time. Yeah.
But not the bikes that they had.
No. You had to pump. You had to pump. Yeah.
No gears.
No.
And so I did that. I did my war service, and I was in the Wrens, and then they didn't need fire guard anymore, which was great. So then I went across to the Penzance Borough Council, and because they're woefully short of staff, and I worked for the medical officer of health, the fuel rationing, the rents, rates, and taxes, and I just carried my typewriter from office to office.
Right, I understand. Yeah.
And did that, and then I came over here.
Well, so then this war was persisting.
Oh yeah, 6 years.
And now, was that quite scary where you lived, Joan?
We were at the,
were you out of...
Yeah, we were out of the... It wasn't like London. It wasn't the Blitz.
No.
But we were still... We got a lot of air raid siren warnings.
Yes.
A lot.
A lot. And it was on your mind.
Oh, all the time. And for 2 years we carried our gas masks.
Yes, you did have to do that.
Oh,
yes.
Carried those. And because you never knew.
No.
And we were always in danger of invasion.
That was constantly on your mind.
Yeah.
And of course, it did come pretty close.
Sure did.
You know, as you read now, more and more, you realize, whew, it's a miracle it didn't take place.
Because he went to Russia.
Yes. It was.
It was so close. And we were going to be handed over. That's what got me.
Yeah, I'm afraid of that.
But we didn't know that.
No. Good. Some things is better we don't know, you know.
Yes. Oh, no, we were, no church bells rang for the whole, that was a signal for invasion. Church bells.
So if you heard the bell, but other than that, on Sunday, no bells.
No bells at all.
Never.
Anytime.
No, because you knew that was really an alarm.
That was an alarm,
definitely. What about food rationing?
Oh, very strict. Very, very
awful strict.
Very strict. Everything, and it was very fair. And but it was, by today's standards, my goodness, you know, the rations for a person were so meager. And of course, where we lived in the country, we could grow vegetables and stuff, and they weren't rationed.
And you didn't have to share them.
No, you had to register with a store. You had to, and of course, in those days, it's different: butcher shop, fishmonger, greengrocer.
Everything specialized, kind of.
So they had to. You had ration books, and you had to register with the store. So with the butcher, if he had 2,000 customers registered with him, then he got 2,000 rations.
Okay.
See, so
I understand.
It was fairer that way. And the rations were very, I don't know how my mother did it, but somehow we did. We were never hungry. You just got awfully sick of the same thing. There were no brands at all. It was all national brand. Because you couldn't have brands with the small quantities. Like, a week's ration for one person. By the week, it would be 2 ounces of bacon, 2 ounces of cheese, and that would be whatever the store had, cheddar, no choice. 2 ounces of dry tea, and I didn't like tea in those days, so I get it from my mom. Let's see, 20 cents worth of meat on Sunday. And 2 ounces of canned corned beef on Wednesday. And half a pint of milk a day. And 8 ounces of bread. And it's just one kind of bread. It was dark bread.
No, just...
Not the dark bread that we have today.
No.
That's string in it, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
And then you had a pound of jam a month. And 1 fresh egg a month.
1 fresh egg a month?
1 package of dried eggs.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
But you didn't feel put upon, did you?
Everybody was in the same boat.
I mean, you know, everybody had to kind of...
Everybody. Clothes were rationed. Anything that was over half an inch wide was exempt. I mean, was rationed. Anything less, like bias binding, wasn't...
No, you could. That was okay.
Buy that.
Yeah.
And I say that, and blackout material, because we had the blackout.
Yes.
And it was dark green.
Well, we probably should, because some people may be listening, and the blackout was, you know, for the bombers.
Oh, yeah, for the bombers.
That were coming at night. You had to, like at night, when it got dark, you had to put
absolutely.
No light showing from your house.
None.
Am I right?
None whatsoever. And you'd get you put out that light, the wardens would be around.
They go out every night.
Or they throw a brick through your window.
Oh, one of the other. But you've got to get rid of that. Yeah, that light. Yeah.
You have to get rid of everything is pitched out. All the cars had lights. Well, all the cars. They were army vehicles.
Well, they have to cover their lights?
Yeah, they had these shutter things on their lights.
Is that? No, I didn't know that.
And your bike, if you had a light on your bike.
You had to have that.
You had to cover the 2/3 of it with cardboard.
I'll be done.
Nothing to throw up, you see.
Yeah.
And same with the flashlight.
Uh-huh.
They had a flashlight. And let me see, what else did they do for blackout? Every window had to be covered, of course. And buses were all blacked out.
Everything blacked out.
Such as they were.
Yeah.
We had a bus every 15 minutes both ways. We had terrific public transportation, but during the war we didn't because they commandeered the buses.
Right.
And,
yep.
Fuel was rationed.
Right.
Totally. And you don't have wood. No wood.
How about coal?
Coal, rationed.
Yeah.
And electricity. And it was shut off, so many hours a day.
Like at 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night?
Well, no, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And if you had several, like an electric stove, then the Cornish range, what they call it, it's like a home comfort stove.
Okay.
With coal. So what my mother used to do, she used to light the range in the morning because that was our hot water.
Yes.
The boiler, and then let it go out in the afternoon, and then because no central heating or anything, just fireplaces, and then she'd light the living room fire, and that would go, and then curtains over the doors and everything, and that would go till it was time for bed.
To go to bed.
And of course, no heat upstairs.
No.
But of course, it wasn't a bitter cold here.
No.
But it's mighty chilly.
Well, yes, and damp.
Yeah. You have the winter hump.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be done.
All clothing, as I say, was rationed. But I said the blackout material because that wasn't rationed. And of course, we were growing. The Americans used to joke about the English girls' short skirts. Well, it was in their clothes.
Yeah, so it was really a necessity to have them short because you didn't have the material.
No.
Is that right?
You could have you could make out of blackout material, and then you'd use bias binding to decorate it.
Yeah. And that was it.
And, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Shoes. Well, you only got 20 coupons for a year, and a coat was 18.
So you had to be kind of...
And shoes were 7.
Yeah.
And wooden sole shoes. They were all wooden, hideous things, and the imitation leather was put on with, like, furniture tacks,
Yes.
And I never could walk in the things. Never could. I got a pair of sandals and tied them loose so that I could pick up my feet.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It was just awful. Then they put a hinge in them. They came out with a hinge, a metal hinge.
That didn't help.
No, because it rusted when it got wet.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, everybody was in the same boat.
So, and Joan, did you ever feel you would lose the war?
Oh, no, never.
It never occurred to you. No, nobody ever mentioned that.
Never even thought about it.
No.
It we were going to win.
Yeah, just never.
Yeah.
But as you read today, when you realize how wouldn't have been,
5 days of food in the country at one time. They were sinking them quicker than they could build them.
Yeah.
The Liberty boats that the Americans built.
Yeah. Well, so actually, I'm sure it wasn't as swell as you make it sound, but everybody was in the same boat.
Yeah, and I was young too.
Yeah.
Now I'd be a shivering.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. You'd be very worried. No, you just kind of went along. Everything's gonna work out. Yeah.
I mean, if I ever thought that I'd have to look out on the any flat surfaces, they put this. In fact, I never see the color chartreuse without thinking of it. This chartreuse paint, this sicky green.
Yeah, I know the color chartreuse. Yes, it's kind of.
Well, that was for gas. It would turn red if there was gas.
I'll be done.
Yeah.
And so everybody knew that.
Oh yeah, you'd have it on top of letter boxes, mailboxes, or our garden wall had a patch of it on there.
I'll be done.
If it turned red, no.
Yeah, watch out.
Yeah, mustard gas or polythene or something.
Yeah.
But everybody lived that way.
So it didn't seem that bad.
It didn't.
No, I do know. From what I've read, Joan, quite a few people from England and kids were sent over to the States to
Oh, yeah.
be safe.
Yeah, they were.
And I don't know any that were. I've read that.
No, I didn't know. We had hordes of them come down. In fact, my father ran that too. The children were the East End, the docks.
Yes.
Of London. It's the slums of London.
Yes.
And they were really bombed terribly. And so they would ship out mothers and children by the trainload, 2 and 3 and 4 and 500 at crack, and then they'd ship them down out of the heavy bombing, like us.
They would send some down.
They'd send a train. They'd say there's a trainload coming. Well, you had to do something with them.
You got to absorb them somehow.
So you had to have a place to meet them off the train. And then they commandeered this, it was a big old house. And so my father was in charge. And Lelant, where we lived, was a wealthy village of retired professional people.
Yes.
Diplomats, and, well, not necessarily all professional. So he assembled this crew of people. They were all retired. And he had a famous London chef and, nurses and whatever. And so he staffed, the house was called Bickington. And the government provided mattresses and blankets and pots and pans.
People
so they would come, and this would be so foreign to Americans. So you'd have a trainload of 300 mothers, all the way from infants to children up to 10, 12, 13 years old, had no idea about the country, were scared to death. It was an 8-hour train journey from London, Paddington to...
No, they were frightened.
And they were scared to death.
Yeah.
And, of course, the fathers were left behind. Some of the children didn't have mothers. They just came. They had tags, labels, you see.
Who they were, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
It was just awful. And,
yeah.
They'd come, and then, that was bad enough. But then they had to be billeted out on the populace.
Yeah, I understand.
And they'd done a survey of all the houses, like if it was Colebrook. Okay.
How many bedrooms I've got?
You got? Yeah. And how many people live in this house? Okay, well then you can take 2 evacuees or 3.
Yes, or whatever.
And it wasn't just for a minute or 2 or a day or 2 or a week. It was.
You didn't know how long.
Go back, and totally different cultures, totally different everything.
Would your family have to take?
No, my father he was arrested TB. We were.
So they weren't able to take any because they didn't want it.
No, they wouldn't let them be there anyway. But we didn't have any room. There were 3 kids, and we had 3 bedrooms.
Yeah. So
my
anyway,
and I, and one brother, and one my folks, and
yeah.
So we were, but even if we could have,
I can understand
so
that.
So you had to go around with these children. Not thank heaven I didn't have to, but they'd have to go around with these children and talk to the householders, and a lot of people didn't want.
Some people didn't.
No way.
Well, it was a hardship all the way around.
And these were slum mothers, and they were the toughest of the tough, city.
Yeah. So it was not good.
And some children, there were awful stories, since I've read, about the children that were abused, and it was bad. It wasn't all bad.
But there was some bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Human nature being what it is.
Well, I know, and that's true the world over.
That was terrible.
Yeah, as you look back on it, you think, oh.
And of course, my father ran such a fantastic rest area. They were called rest areas. That they didn't want to leave. The women didn't. They never had it so good.
They're perfectly happy there.
Yeah, and they had they had better food than they'd had. And with a London chef preparing the meals.
So they kind of wanted to settle in.
Exactly, rioted there
when they would have to leave. Yeah. They didn't want to go.
Yeah, it was bad.
Oh wow! But
anyway.
Anyhow, so you didn't. There was always the threat of something bad happening.
Oh yeah.
But you fortunately did not have to go through bombings yourself.
No, we didn't. We got a lot of alerts, and the day that St. Ives was bombed, I happened to be away. I was up in Falmouth, and this plane, it was only one plane, I guess, came over. The Germans were devils, they really were. And, of course, we have all these beautiful beaches and everything. And how that man, he machine gunned the beaches, didn't hit a soul. I don't know how he missed, but he did. It was two St. Ives beaches. He killed one woman. She was in a deck chair on a. We're all where we live is all tourists and hotels.
Okay.
Beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's all flower growing for Covent Garden and hotels. And this woman was in a deck chair, and she got killed. And then the Spitfire was right on his tail. It was a fighter bomber came in, and the Spitfire drove him out to sea. But just before he dropped his bombs, and right on the edge of the land was our gas works, natural gas, and hit the gas works.
Oh,
put the town out of gas for 4 days or something.
That had to be kind of upsetting.
Yeah, that was, but I wasn't there. See,
so you missed that.
And then Penzance, I can't. The night the office was bombed, because I was home, miles away. And then the other time it was bombed, the forced labor. Germany used to force these people to work and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they dropped 300 bombs on Penzance one night, and not one of them went off. So they thought they were delayed action. So they evacuated and got the bomb squad and all this stuff. And all the vital parts were filled with sand. So
I'll be darned, duds.
Otherwise, Penzance would have been...
But you didn't know. There was that scare.
Oh, yeah. Everybody was...
scared.
We got bombs. I mean, there wasn't a pane of glass on... it's called Market Jew Street, the main street of Penzance. People just got sick of putting the glass back in the store window.
Yeah.
So they boarded them up and just made a little window,
Yeah, yeah.
And, stuff like that. But I didn't get, a bomb fell, but there was a train, a spur line that ran from St. Earth, which is just above us, to St. Ives. And they call it the baby train. And the engineer was hot, I guess, or something, so he threw back the top, just before he went into a tunnel. The doggone plane was right there, dropped the bomb. And, of course, a lot of time, being on the coast, the siren wouldn't have time to go off. The planes would come in, drop the bombs, and the siren would go.
Yes.
And it was too late, So we were in bed, and then all of a sudden there was this almighty crash, And then my mother saying, "It's only me."
Your mother would always say, "It's only me." Yeah.
She got bounced out of bed.
Yeah.
Hit the floor.
Yeah.
And but they didn't get the train.
No.
The train had gone in the tunnel.
I'll be
But
done.
she was on the edge of the bed with my brother because he was nervous.
Yeah, scared. Yeah.
And, the vibration just bounced her on the
I'll be
floor.
damned. Yeah.
But so we were lucky that way.
It seems like you were, but we still know. Well, somewhere, Rudy arrived.
Oh, yeah. We were the last people to get American soldiers. The American soldiers were all up north in the big ports, Southampton.
What year do you suppose that might be, Joan, roughly?
Oh, well, it was 1943, August of 43.
That they found you for, you found, the soldiers found.
So and they'd been having terrible trouble, of course, they were young and naive, the Americans. Everybody was. And you know how a young person feels if he's across the world, nobody knows what he's doing, and he can't do anything.
Yeah, nobody's going to ever know.
Yeah, and they really, some of them acted very badly.
Yeah.
And so then we were notified, because I'm working for the Borough Council, we were notified we're going to get Americans. Oh, my God.
It was that your general feeling, you and your friends? Oh,
everybody.
Hell.
All the counselors.
And, we don't need this.
We're having a fit.
Yeah.
And so anyway, when they came, and then we had to be indoctrinated because American uniforms looked like German uniforms.
Yeah, I suppose.
They're not the round.
No. Mm-hmm.
So they had to indoctrinate the population. Americans were coming. They were coming in convoys because we thought we were going to be invaded any minute.
Yeah. And so you didn't want. Yeah. That's funny. I never heard that before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So they had to indoctrinate the whole population that we weren't being invaded.
No, these are friendly. Yeah.
And so then they had the powers that be, the mayor, the borough council, and everybody met with the officers. And Rudy's outfit was the 29th Infantry. division. It was a southern outfit. And it was a crack outfit, actually. They went through a whole division of men to get the division they had.
Yes.
And they were, their officers were good. We had absolutely no problems at all. They met with the officers and they laid down the rules, and St. Ives had 5 big hotels, and they commandeered all 5 hotels to billet these men. And then the overflow were billeted on the population, just like the evacuees.
Yeah.
And then the counselors decided that they would give a dance to which only American soldiers would be invited in the Guildhall. And they handpicked the girls, counselors' daughters, the staff of the Guildhall.
It just wasn't open to everyone. No.
So they figured naively, by today's standards, that if they introduced the men to, quote, the right kind of girls.
Oh, yes. Everything would be wonderful.
Oh, fine.
Yeah.
So that's how, so we met at a dance.
You at
At that dance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, would he come right along up and ask you to dance?
He was gorgeous, too.
Oh, excuse me. Well, now that's not a problem. We just put on stop. We got interrupted there just for a minute, but we can quickly get back to it. We're talking that Rudy was very handsome, and I've seen his pictures, and I know that's true.
Oh, yeah.
And you said he was, what, 20? 20 years old.
20 years old.
And curls all over his head.
Yes, with long curly hair.
Yeah, so he came right up and he asked you to dance.
Well, he couldn't dance, but I taught him.
No, he didn't dance, but
he learned.
Yeah, he learned.
Jitterbug.
Yeah, jitterbug.
But those days it was.
That was what it was all
Glenn
about.
Miller.
Yeah, Glenn Miller. Very good.
Oh, it was great.
And
so we were, let's see, then he used to come out to the house at night.
Well, now, was he a station right there,
In
John?
St. Ives, yeah. He stayed in this hotel called the Cheyenne Albany Hotel. Chai means house in Old Cornish language.
Okay.
So it was just called the Cheyenne Albany.
Well, all these fellows, billeted, is that the word?
Yeah, they were billeted.
There, and that was where they stayed.
That's where they stayed. There were 5 big hotels, and they were all Americans.
Yes.
And because our area just exists on tourism and flower growing and things like that.
Right.
Those days. Well, still does. And so he used to come out, on the bus, and it's 3 miles. But the darn bus, used to. It was too early to go. Bed check was at 11, and of course he didn't get out there till like 7.
Yeah.
And then the last bus out to St. Ives would be 8.
So I mean, he was only there a minute.
Well, he would have been it, but I'd say, look, he could ride a bike. So I'd say, I'd make the supreme sacrifice. You can take my bike back.
And then he would go back on the bike?
On my bike. And then I gave him the office key.
Oh, Joan.
Oh,
no.
Yeah. One of those great big old-fashioned keys.
Yeah.
And then we had the letterbox. And so I'd say, just unlock the door, put the bike in, lock the door, and push the key through the letterbox. And then I'd take the bus, and I'd pay the bus fare and go in.
Yeah, see, that's the way it goes. Yeah.
And then we'd do that,
Yeah.
And so, of course, he had his 21st birthday with us, And so he just couldn't get over the rationing, because you forget all the things that we didn't have.
No.
Like he saw my father sharpening a razor blade in a glass. He said, "What are you doing?" Well, you couldn't buy razor blades. So he used to bring razor blades.
He'd bring those when he would come.
And, of course, if you had been married before 1939, you could not buy new anything for a house. And, like new furniture, or you had coupons.
You were not allowed to do that?
No, you had to only, before 1939, you had to make do with what you had or buy secondhand or
but no new.
No new. And so Rudy used to come out ostensibly he used to bring his laundry because the offices, they knew what everybody was doing and everybody was
sure.
That way. So he used to wrap up canned goods from the PX,
and bring them out
in a towel. So we had more, and then he'd leave the towel.
Yeah, and
so we had towels. We had more towels. Fort George E. Meade.
No. Do you still have one?
No.
You should have saved one. No, you never do.
We had all this stuff, and then he used to bring us Spam.
Yeah.
from the PX, and my mother, of course, the Spam in those days, it was in great big long cans, you know.
Yeah.
And it had all that, no wonder we had cholesterol, it had all that fat on
Around it, yeah.
you know. So she used to scrape off that and use that, because, see, you either had 2 ounces of margarine a week per person, or 2 ounces of cooking fat.
So she'd use this.
She'd use that, and then she'd take the cooking fat in margarine.
And
because you only got half an ounce of butter a week.
Yeah.
Per person, you know, 1 pat.
Yeah.
And so then she'd parcel out the Spam, you know, and see, there were no canned goods.
Yeah.
Of any kind, you know, very few, and they were on coupons, points, above your ration. And so Rudy used to bring us that, and to see, you got 2 ounces of chocolate or 2 ounces of candy a week, and there were no boxes of chocolates. I'll never forget my brother. He was 5 when the war started, and Rudy brought this box of chocolates out. And Michael had never seen.
He didn't know what to think.
He got sick. We didn't notice what he was doing. He just ate them.
He just ate them and got sick.
And
oh well.
And same with bananas. He'd never seen a banana.
He didn't know that. No.
So they got a ration of 3 bananas a week for children under 7 or something. And so he qualified. Not 3 bananas a week, just 3 bananas.
Yeah. Period.
That particular ration. And so Michael starts to chomp on it, peel and all. You know.
He didn't know.
No.
Didn't know.
Michael,
no, you
peel off.
Well, Joan, were like all your friends, would they kind of team up with these American fellows? I mean, like, you know, it'd be a whole bunch of you.
Everybody opened their doors to the American soldiers.
And liked them, would you say?
Liked them very, very much. Oh, the town was in mourning when they left.
Just like you all just got along great, the Americans.
Got along fine. And there wasn't a boy that I knew of that didn't have a home to go to if he wanted to go to it.
That would just welcome him.
Yeah, and feed you. And they used to feel so. Rudy said he used to feel so terrible to eat because he knew he was taking somebody's rations.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd say, well, you know, we'd say, well, eat. You know, somehow we made a birthday cake. I don't know how, but we did. And he had his 21st birthday with us.
And so you folks made a cake for him.
So we made a cake, but I forget how we got, because there was no white flour, because white flour doesn't keep.
Just made do somehow.
Oh yeah, somehow we had a cake for that. And so he was there from August of 43, and then a month before D-Day, which is June 6, 44, they were held incommunicado.
Yes.
When he came, and his hair was all shaved off and everything, and he couldn't say about it, but we guessed, you know. And then they were gone, and you didn't know where they were or anything.
When he left, he couldn't tell you.
No, he couldn't tell. So for a month, and then D-Day.
Yes.
And so we knew. And then finally letters started to come. And he was at the worst. He was at Omaha.
I thought I had read this, I think.
Yeah, they were pinned on the beach for 3 days.
But you didn't know that he was there at that time, Joan. But you must have been terribly worried.
Oh, I was, because he used to write when he could, and then the letters would come in bunches.
You get a whole packet of letters.
Then you wouldn't get any for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I didn't get any for a long time. And then I heard, I'd see once in a while somebody come back. And I'd say, what about
Rudy?
We wrote to the Red Cross and everything. And they told us he was dead. And
they told you that?
So 5 months I didn't hear.
Oh, Joan, and certainly by this time you really were very fond of him, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. He wouldn't marry until the war was over.
No, but you had these wonderful feelings, and you must have been worried to death.
They
frantic.
He's dead. And why that was, because when he was wounded twice. And the first time he was wounded was it was October of 44. He was wounded, I think. I know he got shot in the leg.
In his leg, yeah.
Yeah, he got shot in the leg. But the worst was the back, and that's why they thought he was dead, because he said that he got blown over a wall, and they were retreating. The Americans were retreating. And he was blown over this wall and knocked out. And he said when he came to, he was lying there, and his weapons were gone. And all he could hear were German voices.
Oh, good
So he
Lord.
played dead. So they'd left him for dead.
And if he wouldn't have played dead, he would have been dead.
So somehow he made it back to the lines. And through the lines and stuff. But for 5 months we didn't get...
You've probably given up almost.
Just about. And my sister came home from school one day, and of course they pushed the letters through the mailbox, you know, and on the thing was a letter from Rudy. She passed out. She was the only one home. She fainted.
She couldn't believe it.
No. So then she called me at the office and all this stuff, and then finally the letter started to come. And that was...
Well, he really had a very, very hard time, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Nothing was easy where he went. You know, where he landed at Omaha, the Germans were carrying, you know, other places the Germans were taken by surprise, and the people just walked ashore. But with them, with the 29th, the Germans happened to be carrying out full-scale maneuvers in that section where he landed. And so they had all their heavy artillery and everything right there. And they never got off the beach for 3.5 days. They were pinned right there. And then they finally made it off the beach.
I don't want to divert from the overall picture, but did Rudy have awful nightmares?
Awful.
Probably all of his life. I think fellows that were in the service that saw a lot, they said they never got over it.
No, well, he did get over it eventually, but it took a long time. First 2 years I was over here, he couldn't work. And, you know, his work was guiding. And
yeah.
So forth. He couldn't do it because he couldn't trust himself. If anybody stepped out from behind a tree or something.
Yeah, just a natural reflex.
Yeah. We used to send the dog up to wake him up because if you woke him,
be careful.
Come up fighting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to get in.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
yeah,
so anyhow, you must have been terribly frightened for those 5 months, but well, it worked out, and he did come.
Oh yeah, he came back. Married.
And did a lot of the same fellows that were billeted with him come back and marry gals like yourself?
He didn't come back, period. He and his captain were the only two that came back out of his section. They were killed right and left.
No, Joan.
Oh, yeah. All the men that
oh, my gosh.
didn't come back.
None of them made it.
No, they didn't make it.
This had to be just devastating.
Yeah, it was awful. Because a lot of them only knew slightly, you know.
No, but nevertheless, you wouldn't have...
You knew.
And they'd say, no, you didn't make it.
No.
Oh, wow.
They didn't make it. A lot of them. And he and his captain did. His captain lived in Lewiston.
Maine?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, we've kept in touch.
And through the years, you've always...
No, he's dead too. He was 11. He was an old man, you know. He was 11 years older than me.
Yeah, so naturally, he was the old man, quote unquote. Yeah, the old man, yeah.
You know, 31 was an old...
Was he married?
Not then. He married after the war.
But not somebody from the States.
From the States.
Yeah, he came back and got married.
Because I hadn't seen him in years, you know, and he came back to the States, and then he came up to camp to see us. And of course, when I knew him, he was an older man to my 16, you know.
Surely, yeah.
And he was thin, and he was very, very quiet and very shy. And his name was Goslin, Arthur Goslin. And Rudy was the world's worst tease. And he told my mother that he was called Giesling. So he brings his captain out, because he wasn't his captain then.
No.
He brings him out, sergeant, that's what it was. He was sergeant, because Rudy was PFC then.
Yeah.
And so he told my mother he was going to bring his Sergeant Giesling out. And so my mother, I can hear her now saying, "Oh, how do you do, Sergeant Giesling?" You know, he's so shy, he doesn't dare say it. He's really just glad.
Oh, I can just get that.
And then when he came when I was up at camp, we lived at camp.
Yeah.
The first 3 years.
He came up to see you guys.
He came up to see, and Rudy wasn't home, but I was there, and I had he was big, and he was fat.
Yeah.
Dark glasses.
Yeah.
And he gets out of the car and in a loud voice, he picks me up and he swings me around.
No kidding.
Who is this man?
Yeah. He just,
He was, but he was a dear soul.
Yeah. Is
he died.
He died,
he died
around the time of Rudy or more?
Well, Rudy died first. Rudy died in May of 92, and I think Arthur died, he's been gone a couple of years.
Yeah, since, yeah.
But he was No, we got married in England.
Yes.
He came home on a Thursday. We were married on a Saturday, and he was gone on the following Wednesday.
No.
In fact, it was VJ Day. We were on our honeymoon.
Is that right? On VJ Day?
On VJ Day.
Now, what would Rudy say about that?
Not too much. We were so young. Good.
Yeah. I mean, but it is something.
Yeah.
VJ Day, and
It was so far away, and we just got over VE Day.
So you hadn't really,
meant more to us than.
Yes, and I think perhaps it did all the way around. No, but I think. Well, this is just what I think. I think when we got VE Day, then we knew that we eventually were going to be able to do VJ. Yeah. That's what I always thought.
Did Americans ever think they were going to lose?
I never thought we were going. Never occurred to me.
We never thought.
No, never occurred. But I do think that once we got the European campaign done, I think we thought we could concentrate on Japan, and we were going to be okay. Yeah.
We had so much. We had the Italian campaign.
Oh, I know you did.
The Libyan campaign.
Oh, God, I know.
It went on forever.
Oh, I know it.
But we still never thought we were going to lose, even when we got.
No, even when it was right down. Yeah. Do you have these wonderful memories of Winston Churchill talking on the radio?
Yes.
I mean, I hear him. It just brings tears to my eyes today.
What a magnificent bluff he put up.
Did he ever?
We'll fight them on the beaches, and we'll fight. We had nothing.
No.
If they ever got to the beaches, there wouldn't have been any fighting.
No, but he was crackerjack. I've been reading Franklin Roosevelt's book by Goodwin there, and it's wonderful the relationship that Roosevelt and Churchill really
they really did. Churchill hated Stalin.
I know
he had to like him because he was an ally.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
But that was awful tough times, for them to all get along. Well, anyhow, so then Rudy says, "Hey there, come on."
Yeah.
And so you did.
Yeah, we did. And then he went back to the front, after we left.
You got married, and then he had to go back.
Yeah, he went back. We got married August the 11th. And then he left, VJ Day was the 14th. And he was gone, back to the front. And then he was shipped home on his birthday, August 10th of that year. And but I was in England.
Yes.
And so I had to wait until, because we were under the auspices of the American Army.
Yes.
You see, they didn't want Americans to fraternize. They didn't want Americans to marry. And they made it just as difficult as they possibly could. And it took me, 6 months to get papers together to get married in the first place. And then it was another 8 months before I got over here.
I'll be done.
Yeah, see, they didn't want. And in spite of that, 58,000 girls married Americans.
58,000?
That was just Americans.
Yes.
And then there were 35,000 Canadians and 35,000 assorted, Czechs, Poles, Free French, and so forth.
I'll be done.
Oh, yeah. But we were under the American Army, so we had to wait. And finally, I got my orders. And that was in fact, anniversary is coming up. I got here Easter Sunday.
Now that year was 1946, Easter Sunday. Yeah.
And we were under the American Army, and we had to. It was very well done. It was very well organized.
Did you come on a big ship or something, all of you together, or how did you do that?
Well, all kinds. I happened to come on the SS Washington. It was 25,000 tons. There were 943 girls, and some of them, of course, with children. And we were, there were 904. I remember that.
And you all came on that?
We all came on that particular boat, and that was just one of hundreds.
Yes. Well, Joan, did you feel, wow, you were off on a wild adventure? Or?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you're so young.
I mean, you were young.
I was 19.
And do you remember thinking that, or did your mother or father?
No, I think my parents were great, because they were great travelers. They were always travelers.
So it didn't surprise, and they liked Rudy.
And they loved Rudy.
So, I mean, that's a good plus right there. Yeah. And then they didn't think that was too much for you.
No, they didn't say. Me, I'd be climbing the walls if it was Kathleen.
No, but they didn't. They took it in stride.
They took it in stride because they were world travelers.
Yeah.
And of course, eventually they got back here, but no, they didn't. They just waved me goodbye.
And you didn't. You were full of optimism, and you couldn't wait. Probably get back here to Rudy and stuff like that.
Because I had no idea of anything. Nothing.
No, so would like Rudy meet you when you docked?
Well, no. See, there again, we were under the army, so that was the only thing they fell down on. Everything was totally organized. We were in barracks. It's an army barracks in England called Tidworth. Everybody knows Tidworth Barracks, and that's where we were for 3 days, getting processed and organized and all this business. I remember we had Italian prisoners of war to wait on us, which was just retribution. They were very nice.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they were nice.
They didn't want to go home either.
No.
And so then we were on this boat. I know it was a Friday, and of course, as the English say, you never sail on a Friday; it's bad luck. But so we sailed, and there again, we were under the American Army, and we all had a number, which I remember to this day. 28J92 was my number.
Is
on
that
my bunk, on my luggage,
on everything?
On everything.
Yeah.
And but for me, it was pure torture because I found out I'm a terrible sailor.
Oh gosh, you were sick.
I was so deathly ill that you would not believe. I almost died on that boat.
Is that right?
I weighed 143 pounds when I got on. I weighed 120 when I got
God,
off.
I guess you were.
In 8 days.
Oh, in 8 days.
And
so it was not a fun voyage.
It was not a fun voyage. I was so sick. And so we got to New York. Hello.
Hi, Joan.
And then
Hi there.
We were taken to the Hotel Aberdeen on Fifth Avenue, and there were 5 of us. We were the last, but that was the only place they fell down because we docked at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I dragged my shattered hulk up to see the Statue of Liberty.
You did special.
Oh yeah, I crawled up there.
Yeah, you weren't going to miss that.
No, but I couldn't even stand.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then they started calling out the names of girls alphabetically whose husbands or whoever were there to meet them.
Yes.
And they'd keep going by the S's, Finally, it got to be midnight of that day. Good Friday it was, midnight. And we were the last 5 girls, the 5 girls for the New England states. I know there was.
And you were the New England girls.
Yeah, Presque Isle, I know one girl was going. So they took us to the Hotel Aberdeen, and that was the first time I came close to Negroes, even though growing up in India and everything, but I just never encountered. I knew about Negroes and things.
But
bellhops and.
This was your first.
Yeah.
Where did you come into?
We came into New York, Pier 92.
And you landed there in the morning, the evening?
6 o'clock in the morning, Good Friday.
6 o'clock in the morning, Good Friday.
Friday of 1946.
Yeah. And were there a lot of people there to meet the boat come in? No.
There weren't. All the coming home things that were on the sides of the buildings or on the banks of the harbor or whatever were for the men that were coming home. They had these big welcome home, but of course it worked for us.
I see.
And they did send out a fireboat with all the hoses going,
Okay, so kind of welcome,
Yeah, to welcome, and it was playing Sentimental Journey.
Oh, I'll be damned. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, that's great.
So we waited all, because nobody told me that they had told Rudy he was going to go to New York to meet me, but they told him not to come because they said by the time he got there, I could be here.
Okay, so that was what
That's the only thing that they made a mistake on. Nobody told me.
So you were looking for him?
Yes, I was, from 6 o'clock in the morning till midnight.
Oh, Joan.
And I was so sick. But anyway, we got off the boat. They took us to the hotel, and they told us that we had to stay together. We 5. We went
from
out.
New England.
Yeah.
Did the fellows that were with the other 4 girls, were they there waiting for them, or
No, they hadn't come either. They'd been told not to.
All 5 of you were by yourselves.
We
Well,
were
thank
just
God they were
5.
there.
Yeah, we 5 were together.
Stuck together.
We were and we were told that we could go out which was Saturday. We could go out the next day, but we had to stay together.
Yes.
And then, as long as we stayed, then when we came back we had to be back at the hotel at such and such a time and all this stuff. And one by one, the girls left. And 2 of the girls, their mothers-in-law came
To pick them up.
So they left. Then there were 3 of us. And then finally this couple of Army officers came and collected me and took me down to the Red Cross on Lexington Avenue. And they were having a party down there. And so I was sitting there, and this girl came over and said, would you like a sandwich? And of course, all this food, that I couldn't eat on the boat. And so she brought over a turkey. I remember a turkey sandwich, white bread. Hadn't seen that in 6 years.
So you had turkey sandwich.
Turkey sandwich
Yeah.
at Lexington Avenue.
I'll be done.
Then I went back to the hotel, and my train didn't go till midnight. So this major and captain or whatever they came back to get me, took me down to Grand Central Station, and so then
Wait, were you getting a little bit upset by this time?
Well, I was upset because when about 2:00 in the morning, by the time we got to this hotel and everything, and I did have a telephone number. Of course, I had no idea about telephones.
Whoa, wait a minute. Well, how would you know?
Lost my
Maggie,
thing
come on.
here. So I called the number, and of course I had no idea about the place being closed up for the winter and all this stuff. And it was just by the first time I called, I got no reply. And the operator came on and said, this number's been disconnected. So I thought, well, here I am at 2:00 in the morning, way over here, and I have no idea.
Oh, Joan.
So I tried again at 8:00 in the morning, and it just so happened that Rudy was walking by, because they weren't even in the main camp. They were over at one
He
of the
was just
stores.
walking by, and
he heard the phone ring. So he came in and picked up the phone.
Oh, Joan.
I don't know what I would have done if he hadn't come walking by, because then I would have really begun to get excited. So I said that I'd be
where you were.
Yeah, and he knew that I was coming in to Whitefield. And that's as far as the train came.
Yeah.
And so then I felt all right after that.
So you got the train from New York to Whitefield.
Yeah, they took me down to Grand Central Station, and went in, because it's a huge station.
I know.
And they had this roped off area. It was so fun, like a boxing ring. Only
Was that
bigger
for you?
Yeah, it was for brides.
Yeah.
Because you weren't allowed to be around anybody. And there was an MP at each corner.
I'll be done.
There was this one girl sitting in this great big roped off area with her suitcase, and then there were 2 of us. So we were left there, and we couldn't even go to the bathroom without the MPs.
They would have to go with you, follow you. Yeah.
So then the major and the whatever came back, the colonel or captain or whatever, and they escorted me down and put me in charge of the porter, and who was a black, and very nice man. And I had a sleeper and all this stuff, but I never went to bed.
No.
So the porter and I stayed up and talked.
Just visited back.
Yeah, all night long.
Yeah.
And he was a very nice man. And I, as I say, first Negroes
Connection
I met.
you
Yeah.
really had with
Because,
the
see, in England, in those days, there was no such thing as race and all this business. We had the open door policy. And the first time I ever saw racial prejudice and stuff, see, Rudy's outfit was a Southern outfit.
Yes, okay.
And the blue and the gray. And they did not fraternize. It was so unfair. The white Americans were billeted in town.
What about
the blacks were out on the moors somewhere. And then about once a month they'd take the Americans off on maneuvers, move them out of town, and move the blacks in for a weekend so they could go to the movies or something.
But that was it.
Yeah. And, then in a great while, they happened to overlap, like at a dance or something.
But not good.
No, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. The whites had a fit when the girls danced with the black. I mean, why wouldn't I dance with the black? It didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
And it was bad. And so Rudy told me.
And that was all news to you because
it was all totally news to me.
And
we
I
were
bet you
appalled.
didn't like it.
No, we didn't. No. We were totally appalled.
Yeah. But Rudy told you that's the way it was.
Oh yeah, he said this is Southern outfit.
Yeah.
He didn't believe that way, but
no, but this is just just have to live with it.
Yeah. In fact, the 29th is no more. You know, they would not integrate.
They simply refused.
Yeah, and they've dissolved them.
Yeah,
there's no the regiment isn't there anymore. The division or whatever they call it.
So I'm sure that Rudy wouldn't. He didn't think much of that business.
No, he didn't. And but anyway, I stayed with the.
So then you came.
He was a great guy.
And so you visited and got kind of
all night long.
Yeah,
and
passed the time.
Got to White River Junction.
Yeah.
And then we had to change trains. You know, and so this porter, you know, he escorted me. And I remember walking in England. You never walk over railway tracks. That's an absolute no. You always have platforms, and you never go on the tracks. And of course, at White River is nothing but tracks.
I know.
And we were stepping on all these tracks.
Yeah, and you were scared.
And I thought, what are we doing? You know,
I'm scared. I don't like this. Yeah.
And so then he put me in charge of the next porter.
And he took you under his wing.
And then he took me under. So, and then I was sitting beside this American soldier. And it was, of course, now it was Easter Sunday. And Sunday morning. And so he had the papers, you know, and so forth, the Sunday paper. He said, would you like the paper? And I said, sure. So now in England, comics are for children. And so he said, oh, okay. So little did I know he was handing me the best part of the paper. He handed me the comics. And I thought, well, now I just may be young, but I'm not that young. You know, I am perfectly capable of reading the paper.
Yeah, but he thought he was being really nice.
Oh, yeah, he thought he was being nice to
you. Yeah,
know?
Is that cute?
He gave me the
that's
comics.
awful cute.
And so we came, and we came, and we came, and we came.
And did you begin to think, my goodness,
where is this
quite
place?
A trip?
Yes, because we just kept going north and going north and going north, you know. And then there was snow on the ground. And, of course, April is not a very...
Not the best month in New Hampshire.
It's terrible.
No. In fact, about the worst, I'd say.
So then, and of course, I must have looked a fright. I had a brand new perm when I got on the boat. And of course, being sick and everything, it was straight. My hair was straight.
Maggie.
And none of my clothes fitted.
No.
I had pins and, you know, I had the new look before it was the new look.
Yeah.
So we pulled into Whitefield, and I thought, so I'm looking out the window, you know, and I see, and of course American cars look so lavish, because those were the days when they had, you know,
yeah, they were long and big cars.
And huge.
Yeah.
And of course I'd come from a country with hardly any cars. Mm-hmm. Now it's terrible, but then.
Yeah.
And just American military vehicles and stuff, and I saw all these cars. I thought, my gosh, you know, this is a very affluent society. I didn't realize they were just cars.
Yeah.
And then way at the end of this line of cars was this battered, mud-bespattered pickup truck. And I thought, what do you bet?
You said...
Well, it turned out Rudy had this...
It was Rudy.
It was Rudy. He had this 1937 Plymouth, which was his pride and joy. It was green.
Joan.
And he'd sent it to be painted and fixed up and waxed and all that. They didn't have it ready.
Yeah, it just that's life. That's life.
So he had to borrow his grandmother, Goldie Hurlbut's farm pickup truck to come down to get me.
I bet he was mad.
He was having a fit. And of course, I had never seen him in civilian clothes.
Yes.
And he looked so bad.
You were so...
I thought, oh my gosh.
I suppose that this is really true of many of the war brides.
Oh, I'm sure.
They took them out of their uniform, you know, and here they were. And then, you know, all of it.
Oh, he had that horror. I got rid of that thing in a hurry. He had this, he looked just like a gangster. You know, Edward G. Robinson.
Yes.
He had this navy blue serge pinstripe suit, which was the most hideous thing I ever saw. And this hat.
He had a hat on.
He had a hat. Rudy, you never wore a hat.
No, I never. No, hunting hat. Maybe that was about it.
This horrible hat. And I thought, oh my God, he looks just like Edward G. Robinson.
Oh.
And then to make matters worse, I come staggering off the train, you know, here 8 months, haven't seen him. And he walks right by me. He didn't recognize me. I look so terrible.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, this is some tale, I tell you.
But I was in charge of the Red Cross lady, you know, because she had to hand me, I was still under the, and so when she had to hand me over to him, then she could leave, you know.
Yeah.
And so we came north to Clarksville with the mud. I'd never seen a muddy dirt road in my life. It's a country lane, and you just walk on it, you don't drive on it. Mud to your ears.
And I'll bet that seemed like quite a little trip from Whitefield to Clarksville.
Did. Yeah, especially at the Stewartstown. When you go through Stewartstown Hollow, there used to be dirt roads, you know, part of the way. And mud up to halfway up the hubcaps. God.
And Rudy, you know, told you, a little background. No, this was kind of...
This was total.
Yeah, I'm going to let her outdoors. I just stopped this just for a second. Well, I guess we're all set the dogs outdoors for a little bit. Anyhow, so you did get up through Stewartstown Hollow on that dirt road, and you kept going to Clarksville.
And where we stayed 3 years, winter and summer.
You wintered there as well.
Yes.
And just you and Rudy.
Yeah. And in the summers we ran the camps.
Yes.
In those days we were open from the ice out, which would be around the 1st of May.
Yes.
And right straight through the hunting season, which ended the 1st of December.
Did you have to do the meals?
Oh, yes, I did all the meals, because in those days, to start with, we only had 3 cabins.
I couldn't remember. There were 3
Yeah, we had
there.
3, and the main camp and 2 others.
Yes.
And we used to rent boats and serve 3 meals a day.
Yes.
And I had never cooked in my life.
Well, it's surprising how quickly you can learn when you have to, I guess.
Yes, and you had to go by American cookbooks, which do by cups and things.
And that was all different for you.
All different, because we cook by weight. You have little scales. But
you just persevered.
Oh, yes.
And probably Rudy helped you.
And, well, sort of, yes.
But of course I know he was guiding.
Yeah, he was guiding
busy and working
and trying to make ends meet. You know?
Right, in general.
And he didn't work for the first 2 years because of his war experiences. He couldn't, so
I see.
Things were pretty thin there for a while.
Well, that was more of a getting settled kind of a thing after the experiences.
Yes. And then I got to work. Then I went to work.
Oh, you went to work?
Oh, yes. I was in the, remember the old A&P?
Yes, you went there?
Yeah, I was in I didn't go to work there. I was getting groceries one day. And you know how the aisles are high and you can't, well, like they are today, you can't see over.
Right.
And so I heard this woman's voice saying, oh, and it was Esther Harrigan, but I didn't know that at the time. It was Esther. And she was saying, oh, my poor husband, he is having such a time. He said he cannot find a secretary. He's opened his law office, and he cannot find a secretary. So I came around the corner, and I said, I'm a legal secretary.
Is that the way it was?
Yeah. She said, oh, go over and see my husband.
And so you did.
So I did, and I worked for him for 10 years.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
It was just a happenstance.
Yeah, I just heard this voice.
And then you became very good friends.
Oh, yeah,
very. Through
very
the years.
good friends.
I know you've always were good friends. Good friends. Yeah.
And so I worked for him for 10 years.
And so then Rudy would hold down the fort?
Yeah. I used to work part-time.
I see.
Because, of course, I had Jeanette, and then I had Kathleen.
Yes.
And so I used to work part-time. And then Fred's business got big enough so that he needed full-time.
Right.
And our business got bigger.
Right.
And so then I stopped work. But only very short. Because then Mr. Cobb came to town.
Yeah.
And so he straight away went up to the camps to hire me.
I'll be darned.
And I said, well, I can't come to work till after hunting season, you know. So being Mr. Cobb, he brought a typewriter up to camp.
So you could work?
So I could work up there.
I'll be darned. We probably should say here, Joan, that Mr. Ivory Cobb was the first black judge in the state of New Hampshire, which was really quite remarkable.
It was quite a
it was really a wonderful thing to have.
Yeah. And he was a nice man.
I think he was. There's no question that he was. And so you worked for him
14 years.
You were with him for 14 years.
And then he said he was going to, of course, he was getting ill.
I know.
I mean, we didn't know it.
No, nobody knew it. No, but he was.
It was Alzheimer's, I think. We didn't even know the word then.
No. Isn't it funny that we didn't? But it's kind of like a new disease, but I think it's always been with us.
Yeah.
Except we didn't call it that.
because he was, a lot of things wouldn't add up, and I'd just say, oh, well, that's just his way, And then he told me, the only reason I probably would have been working, if he was alive, I probably would have still been working there. But he told me he was going to retire. And that's where I got done. He said he was going to retire at the end of 76. And of course he never did. And so I made all my arrangements, because Phil had opened up by then. He came in 75. And he said he'd never take away anybody's help.
Yeah.
But he said, if you want a job, you've got one. And so I spoke to Mr. Cobb and everything. So you're going to retire and da-da-da-da-da. And I remember having this long talk about retiring and everything. And then I was going to retire at the end of the year, knowing the way his mind worked. It was the end of the year. It was the end of the quarter. That would be fine for him. And he never remembered it. He was absolutely thunderstruck when I left.
He was definitely.
Yeah, he was going. And then I didn't even tumble,
No.
Never tumbled. So then I went to work for Phil, January of 1977.
You never worked for Tom Walsh.
No, he was dead.
By this time, he had gone.
He'd gone.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought you did for a little while there. No, I'm wrong.
No, he was. I'd left Fred before he and Fred got together.
Right.
I'd left. And then he died.
Yeah, see, he must have died in, 1977, I think.
I forget, because I went to work for Phil in 77, and we were in the Remick block.
Yeah.
That's when...
So it was just about all that same time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just about, and then the bank, when Tom died, then the bank needed... Right. And so they asked Phil, and then he went to the bank.
Right, that's the way it was,
But we never had any... People thought we took over Tom's... practice, but we never did.
No, I knew you didn't. Joan told me you didn't.
No. And I said, Joan, what a nice...
Oh, she's a sweetheart. Yeah. She's just a sweetheart.
Yeah, I'd known her for years and years.
Yeah. And Esther.
Esther,
you must feel,
Oh, yeah. I say it's terrible. When I first came to this country, it was the older people that took me under their wing. See, the other 19-year-olds, what did they care?
No, that's true.
19-year-olds don't care.
No.
So I didn't know a blame soul.
No.
Everybody I knew was older.
Yes.
Like the Jenkinses and Ina Trenum.
Yeah.
Marjorie and Herbert.
Yeah, these were people that really were nice to you.
Oh, yeah. And I tell you, it's very devastating. All my friends are going.
Well, no, but it's true that those people took you right under their wing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what happens when you got friends that are 11, 12, 15 years older than you are.
Well, I think, I guess I would definitely like to say, I know the church has always meant a great deal to you, Joan. I want to come back to the camps, but while we're talking like this, I know how much Hobie.
Oh, yes.
And Betsy.
Yeah, and Betsy.
He was the Episcopal minister here. I can't remember just when he was here.
I can tell you when he came. He came in... 50 to 55, I think.
And everybody loved them.
See, there was no priest per se when I came. Captain Pryor was here.
Yes.
Church Army.
Yes.
Tom Pryor's father.
Yes.
And he left shortly after that, because I know Tom brought him up to see me.
I see.
And it was so great because he's Cornish.
Oh, is that right?
And not that I'm Cornish. I was a foreigner in my own...
Yeah, but you're kind of...
Yeah, but that's where I grew up in Cornwall. And so he was the only person that knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, when you talk, he'd say, oh, yes, I know.
Yeah, and he'd know.
Yeah.
Because I might just as well have been speaking Greek.
Yeah.
Most people couldn't understand a word I said, and I spoke excellent English. Now I don't, but I did then. Now I speak upper clause.
Yeah, well, that's how we all are. Well, we can understand each other.
I used to sound like the Queen. Yeah. People couldn't understand me.
They didn't know what you were saying. No.
Like, what's wrong with these people?
Yeah. So then you had Hobie, and then I know Ben Chase.
And Ben Chase.
Bobby, and they were
Smokey
delightful.
Hurst.
Yes, and so the church has always been a very big part of your life, and I would imagine, when you were living so far from where you grew up, it must have meant even more to you. I don't know. Yeah. I would think that.
I think it did. In the church club, because we don't meet anymore now.
No, but it was a good link for you to because now we spoke earlier. We weren't on tape, but we were talking about other war brides that came, and you did refer to the fact that there was one down in North Stratford.
Yeah.
But basically, you were pretty much a solo.
Yeah, I was on my own just about.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you could, especially in Clarksville, we have great neighbors, you know,
Yes.
but you're still a foreigner.
Yes.
To this day.
Yeah, that's right.
You're a
You've got to live here a couple generations, Joan. There's no question.
It's the same back home, too.
Yeah, it's the same everywhere, I guess, the world over. But I think you certainly have made your niche for yourself. And we were speaking about the camps up there. And so you did do that cooking, and then you went to work for Ivory.
Yeah.
And then... now that you had, I don't know how, it seems to me, Joan, in the late 50s or maybe early 60s, you had quite a few cabins.
Well, we bought, Sam Weeks was up there, and Joe Boscheman had 3/4, when I first came, Joe Boscheman had 4 little log cabins, what we call the other side of the pond. It's really the same side, but it's the west side.
All right.
And he owned 3/4 of the frontage. We only owned 1/4.
Oh.
And so he owned 3/4 of the frontage.
All right.
But I didn't know him at all, at all.
No.
And then he lost it to the bank or something. And then Brainerd of Brainerd's Drugstore did it off at the auction. And then somewhere along the line, he sold it to Sam Weeks.
All right.
And we bought from Sam in 1953, I think it was.
So then you ended up with
the whole thing, except for 2 private lots across.
The whole of that whole pond?
Yeah, we owned all the frontage. We still do.
And you still do?
Yeah, we still do.
That was fly fishing only?
Fly fishing only.
And still is?
And still is.
Right.
And,
that's good.
And because we own all around it, except those 2 private lots, which have got to cross our land to get to, we got the bill through this is just recently, because I got sick of listening to outboard motors on this little tiny
I know,
pond.
it's not a big pond at all.
So we have got it restricted to electric motors.
Good.
We couldn't have done it if we didn't own all the...
But you had so much property.
There was nobody we'd have had to get permission from everybody, you know, but we didn't have to, it was just us.
So then you bought Sam Weeks, so then you had more cabins.
We had more cabins, but we had to get rid of them. We ran them for a while, but they're so near the water. There was no way of having, they were chemical toilets, and it just
It's a problem
feasible.
around a waterfront property, the toilets and stuff. And were any of those housekeeping? Or
they were all housekeeping.
Those were all housekeeping.
They were all
so that didn't change that much for you.
No, and then we stopped serving meals.
Completely.
Only after Rudy died did we stop. Well, no, 2 or 3 years before he died, we stopped completely serving meals.
It was all housekeeping.
It's all housekeeping.
Yeah.
And we stopped serving. I stopped serving 3 meals a day long before.
You just do what, breakfast and supper?
And then I do breakfast. Then hunting season we did. That's when we finally we stopped doing meals all day every day, and then we got down to just hunting season.
Right.
And then 2 or 3 years before Rudy died, we stopped doing it. It wasn't economically feasible. We're not big enough.
No, you're neither fish nor fowl.
No, and it was too much. I mean, it was a lot for me to feed 20 men. Yeah. But it's not big enough to make a profit, or it was just put
to have someone come in and help you.
Yeah.
It would be
it was Kathleen and different ones would offer to come. You know, Rudy's half sister, Blondie's daughter, used to come. But it was still all fell on me.
Yeah,
you know?
I understand.
And so it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So they had a fit the hunters, but they still came.
But no, they liked it the way it was.
They liked it the way it was, but I said, no, I can't do it anymore.
Can't do it, no.
And so now we don't. Then Rudy laid out this little trailer park, which he never thought would.
What year would that have been?
Oh, God, it was a long time ago now. Must be 15 years ago at least.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe 20.
Yeah, so we talking about back in 1970.
Yeah. He just used to poke around in there, and he put some water lines down and.
Kind of haphazard.
Yeah.
He didn't really think.
No, he never thought it would take off. And now, of course.
That's what you are.
That's the main part of it now. We've got 3 cabins because we didn't bother with the other cabins. We took them down.
Yeah.
And it was too expensive to get sewer and water and
everything.
stuff.
It
wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Because they were only open Now we're only open from Memorial. We try to open up Memorial weekend.
And you plan to this year, Joan?
Oh, yeah, the 26th, our first people are coming in. And then we'll close the 15th of October.
So that is...
So it's only about 4 months.
No.
And it's... so we have the trailer park, and people can go there year-round if they want to, but we can only keep the water going from May to October.
Well, we were up there not long ago in the winter, and you had a lot of people leave their rigs right there.
Oh, they all leave them there.
Leave them right there.
Yeah. They rent the site. They own their trailers, and they rent the site. We own the land.
Do they rent the site generally by the year?
By the year.
So they'll just leave them right there.
They just leave them right there, and they're responsible for... We have a compressor, and they blow out their own water, and we tell them we're going to shut the water off.
Which isn't too bad on you.
No, it's fine. I just soon get rid of the other cabins that we've got. But we've got our old guests that still want to stay.
They want to come and stay.
They want to stay, so we hang on to the 3 cabins there, and but we're not going to rebuild.
No. But just hang in there for them for a while.
If they want to stay in these old cabins. Well, one of them isn't too bad. We built one years ago when we first met Rudy. My mother said, Rudy, someday you're going to build me a house in the woods. And so when they finally came, when the Canadian government, way back when, 1948 or 9, the Canadian government finally, after all these years and years and years and years, said that anybody who fought for Canada could have Canadian citizenship, my father came home.
Oh.
He'd been gone since I was 5.
Oh.
So they came back home.
Now, that year would have been what?
That would have been, Jeanette was born in 47, probably 49 or...
And they got back to
Canada.
And that must have been a thrill for you.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Weren't you excited?
Oh, yeah. And they used to zip right up and down. They used to make 6 trips a year sometimes, you know.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. And we did build the cabin.
For your mom?
Yeah. It's the newest one, that's the big one that's on the point there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she loved that.
Oh, she loved it. Unfortunately, she didn't live too long to enjoy it.
But she didn't have the thrill of knowing.
Yeah. She had the thrill of building it and staying there. But
that's kind of heartwarming.
Yeah, that was great.
And I bet Rudy thought, aha, I'm a Yank, but I did that, you know.
Yeah, and that's why it's called the first and last, because at home, there's a pub, now it's a gift shop, but at Land's End, it's called the first and last, on the roof, a stencil, the first and last house in England, which it is. It's the first house coming in, it's the last house going out.
I'll be there, yeah.
And so my father, when we were building, and he doesn't know one end of a hammer from the other, but he's right in the middle, you know. And he'd race back and forth, you know, to get nails or to get drinks or to get water or something, you know. And he'd plow back and forth. Here's this man that wasn't supposed to walk again.
But here he is.
And here he is tearing back and forth. And so one day he came in and he says, my gosh, he says, I know this is the first camp I've ever helped build. He says, I'm damn sure it's going to be the last. And my mother says, we'll call it the first and last. Yeah, and so we still call it the first and last.
Still is that.
Yeah. So that's...
So anyhow, you just persevered and... And
we still are.
And you still are.
Yeah, we're still struggling along.
And I know I took hunter safety from Rudy.
Yeah, he did that for years.
Yes, and I loved him. He was such a nice man, and he died just a couple of years ago, Joan.
Yeah, 92.
92. Yeah, and awfully nice man.
And he was sick for long.
I know, and you had a tough time.
Yeah,
you had a really tough time.
But he wasn't. You know, he had. I presume he had Alzheimer's, but his doctors weren't sure. You know, they thought he did.
Yeah,
but he also had Parkinson's and.
Seems to go
multiple strokes.
He had,
but he was aware. If he had Alzheimer's, he would have been in his own little world.
But he was aware.
Oh yeah, he couldn't talk. He couldn't talk, and he was paralyzed. He couldn't move.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't paralyzed, but the brain wouldn't make the. So he couldn't feed himself. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't. You know, he could do it.
Yeah.
But he couldn't make himself do it.
Yeah.
But he knew where he was, and you could carry on a one-sided conversation.
And
he'd react, and he'd laugh, you know.
No, he knew what you were saying.
Oh, absolutely.
It probably wasn't Alzheimer's.
And that's why he was so terrified. That's why I never would he have gone into a home, because he was...
He never would have gone into a home,
I couldn't do that to him. No.
No.
And I was lucky to have Rotha look after. She was marvelous, Rosa
Harrington?
Harrington. Yeah, she was marvelous.
She was a godsend for you, Joan.
Yeah, she was. I had an Inez Haney
Yes.
for a little while, but it got too much when he got, so he had to be lifted.
Right.
And because he couldn't even scratch his nose if it itched, because he couldn't make the connection to lift his hand. So we had to have a Hoya lift, and
I simply didn't know.
Yeah, well, there was no reason why you should.
Well, our paths wouldn't cross, so I would have heard. I often think of that sometimes. If we only knew more, we could be more helpful to one another, but we don't. We all go our ways and
just do your thing.
Well, anyhow, I think it's pretty interesting. You married this sportsman, and everybody knows that Rudy Shatney was probably guide, excellent, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't particularly share his enthusiasm?
I certainly did not.
No. When you married him, did you realize that this was what he loved? No, just jitterbugging.
Totally green,
Yeah, so when you got up to Clarksville, you realized that, hey, this is what this fellow is about.
Yeah, this is what he does. Yeah. But then I didn't have time anyway. It was because I was the only help, quote. I did all the laundry and the cooking.
You did everything.
Yeah, everything.
Basically.
So I didn't have time anyway, but he tried to teach me to fish.
He wanted you to fish. He thought it'd be good for you to fish.
So I learned how to row a boat, and I don't like to be on the water. I
hate the water.
But at least the pond doesn't move.
No,
it's all right.
No.
I love the ocean. I grew up by the ocean, but I don't want to be on it.
No. Yeah,
because I'm a terrible sailor. And so I learned to fish, but I would not take the fish off the hook.
Would never do that.
No. I wouldn't touch the blooming thing.
I wouldn't touch them. How about eat them?
No, I don't like them.
Do not care for... Do you like saltwater fish?
Yes, I love saltwater fish.
But this freshwater fish...
I saw too many lying around with their innards.
Oh, yeah, so nothing for you.
No way.
Yeah. Would Rudy eat them?
Oh, yes, he loved them.
He would.
I used to cook them for him.
Yeah, he would, because I know a lot of fishermen. My father was an ardent fisherman. He loved to catch them, but he didn't eat them.
No, well, I cooked. I who couldn't cook learned to cook American, and I cooked everything under the sun. I've cooked moose and bear and deer and ducks and coon.
Well, how did you learn how to do that? Did Rudy show you, or his mother show you?
No, his mother didn't.
His mother didn't show you, but you...
I just sort of learned, and I had a cookbook that had game cooking.
And so you just kind of would go right to it.
Yeah. First cookbook I was given, it was a Jewish couple that gave me that. I didn't know whether it was a compliment or an insult. They gave me a cookbook. Because I didn't know anything about Jewish people,
No, would they be guests?
Yeah, they were guests. Awfully nice. David and somebody light. Oh, they were charming. He was a violinist, and he looked the part, and he, and I know I fed him bacon and eggs, and so they were so polite, I didn't know. What did I know?
They wouldn't.
He said, no, bacon's not on our diet.
Yeah.
And I said, okay.
Yeah, no problem.
And but I didn't know.
No, why? Yeah.
So, but anyway, when they went home, they gave me this I still got the book.
You still have it?
Good Maine cooking, it says.
That'd be darned.
State of Maine.
I'll be darned.
So I used that book for the game, such as it was.
But you must have made some nice friends through the years with people, because you had people that came back year after year.
Oh, yeah. We're the only, as far as I know, we are the only original camp owners in the area.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think the next oldest one is Betty Fulton at the Glen.
I'll bet she is. She is.
But she's not the original.
No.
There either.
No.
See, we're the original ones.
Yeah.
And we still are.
Yeah.
But everything else has been bought and sold.
Quite a few times. I mean, you think of Diamond Pond, or I think of Wallace Pond, because
Back
Lake, all those places have changed hands.
Oh, umpteen times.
Yeah. Well, so anyhow, Joan, I know that you stay winters in Colebrook up on Pleasant Street, and then you said you'd be going out to camp about Memorial Day.
Well, we'll be starting. Kathleen will be coming up to start cleaning and all this business.
And just where is Kathleen now?
Kathleen is in South Woodbury, Vermont. It's about half an hour out of Montpelier.
Right.
Coming this way. I know how to get there, but it's just a wide place in the road.
Yeah, and she's very content there.
Well, as content as she will be living in Vermont. She won't.
Because she would like to get back over this way.
She'd like to be in Colebrook. She'd like to have the kids in the Colebrook school.
Well, I think we all would think that was super. Now, she has two boys.
Two boys.
And they are...
Well, there's Alex. He's 13.
Alex
he was
is-
13 in December.
Yes.
And Trevor will be 16 in July. Oh no, it doesn't seem possible.
Do they love to get up to camp?
Oh yes.
Oh, can't wait.
Oh yes. Oh, Trevor is excellent fisherman.
Loves the fishing.
Loves to hunt.
He's kind of like Grandpa.
Oh yeah, it's in his genes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He won the fly casting contest, not this year, but last year. I saw him casting, and I said, Trevor, why don't you enter the guide show up? And he's shy, you know. So yeah, I didn't think he'd do it.
Up in Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
Was that in Pittsburgh?
So he was casting with the wind on the grass up at camp, and I said, look, mark off here in 50, take some pie plates and mark it off, but cast into the wind, because you've got to cast into the wind. And by golly, he went, and he won.
Now, was that kind of a thrill?
Well, yeah, because I said to Kathleen, did you tell them who he was? She said, no, I didn't. I just wanted to tell on his own.
Sure.
And so they got his name wrong. They said, what did they say? He was so disgusted. They said I was Trevor McKinnon from Columbia. He said, they probably think I'm some flatlander from down below. But anyway.
Wouldn't Rudy think that was swell, huh?
Yeah, he would.
Oh, that is.
Yeah,
Oh, that is so good. Well, but so they will be coming back, and they'll be with you this summer. You'll be out of camp.
Yeah.
And I know I don't want to keep you forever here. We've had good chat here. I know that you have taken the boys to England.
Oh, yes, we did. I've always wanted to do it. And
I can't remember when that was,
It was
Joan.
in March.
In March.
It was the 2nd to the 9th of March. The lady lawyer in the office, she's always looking for these deals, you know, and she found this fantastic deal that made it affordable. But you had to go in March.
Yeah.
So we did. And of course, March in England is a lot better than March
in New
over
Hampshire.
Here. Yes. And so we did. We had this flying trip. It was, you left on a Tuesday and came back on a Tuesday. So you left on Tuesday night, got there Wednesday morning, and then you had to leave again the following Tuesday afternoon back home. But we covered the ground.
Had a great time.
Yeah, we couldn't have done it without Morris. Of course, Jeanette, we didn't mention Jeanette, who was...
No, we haven't.
Yeah, and she was married to Morris in 1960.
But this is Morris Phillips.
Morris Phillips.
Yes.
And
his mother and father...
Carol and Berdina.
Yes, awfully nice people.
Oh, yes, and
awfully
Morris
nice.
Morris is fantastic.
Yes.
And so we've known him, you know, all his life just about.
Yes, and kept up a friendship through the years.
Yes.
He always is very close to you.
And he spent, well, we still consider him our son-in-law.
Absolutely.
He got married 12 years after Jeanette's death. He finally got married.
Yes.
And nice lady, English lady.
Yes.
And, but we keep in touch.
Absolutely. So, he's like family.
Oh, yeah. And if it wasn't for, because he's been in England 15 years.
Is it that long?
Yeah. He's in the American Air Force.
Yeah.
And he has a house over there and the whole bit. So he met us with this 7-passenger bus. And of course, he knows England like the back of his hand. Yes. And of course, every time I go over, I see him. And so he knows my friends.
Right.
And so he met us at Gatwick, and we zoomed down to Cornwall. And where my girlfriend, my best friend, had arranged bed and breakfast. And I stayed with her, and the rest of them were in 3 bed and breakfasts just down the road a piece. So we went everywhere. We went to unfortunately, the people weren't home at our house, but we showed the kids the outside of the house, the church I was married in, and the beaches, and where I worked, and Land's End. And
wasn't it
it was
a dream come true to take
really
the family like that?
I can't wait to go back.
Can't wait.
Take them all back again.
Yeah.
Because we only scratched the surface. You know?
Well, but it sounds like it was wonderful. So you have maintained this friendship with some of the people from there, despite time is gone.
Yeah.
Your sister is she alive?
Oh yes, my sister's 2 years. She's in Newfoundland.
Oh,
see, when my father came in 1940, 50, whatever it was, 49, 50, he brought my brother and sister. Had to, couldn't leave them in England. And Kathleen Constance came kicking and screaming because she didn't want to.
She didn't need to
No, she didn't want to come.
No.
Because she was in the middle of nurses training. And she had to start all over again in Canada.
But
now she's so militantly Canadian.
She loves it.
You know, she's not too wild about Newfoundland.
But she loves it.
Oh, yeah. And she did very, very well. And she's an operating room nurse. I who fainted at the sight of a drop of blood.
That she is.
Yeah, but she's retired now. And she married a surgeon. And they live in Newfoundland, have 2 kids. And the daughter is a doctor now. And my brother lives in Toronto.
So they're all back this way.
Yeah, they're all here now.
Yes.
And,
but through the years, you have been back home.
Oh, yeah. It took me 23 years. I was over here 23 years before I went back to England.
You kid me.
Yeah. My father took me on my first, 1967. The year Jeanette was killed, as a matter of fact. And we went to England. He took me back. And then after that,
That was your first trip back since you came?
First trip back, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, 23 years. And
it almost gives you goosebumps to think about it.
We had a ball.
Yeah. Your mother had died.
Yeah.
And so it was you and your dad, and you went back.
And I went back. Oh, it was great.
And looked up everything and saw people.
Saw people. Oh, I'd never been to London. I'd never seen London until 1967.
Well, no, because you said...
Because of the war.
Yeah.
And see, I was...
Well, that must have been a thrill for you.
Oh, yes. Yes, and of course London didn't look as nice then as it does today, because when I first saw London, I was so disappointed at the Houses of Parliament, because everything was black, soft coal.
Oh.
And all the buildings were black, 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 and I thought,
you were
Lord.
disillusioned, yeah.
And now, of course, London is a smokeless zone, and the buildings are all washed, and, the Houses of Parliament are that honey color that you see, and Westminster Abbey is white, and St. Paul's, but when I first saw it, I was disappointed.
Well, when you had your family there, you didn't get to London.
Oh, yes. Oh, believe me, if it wasn't for Morris, we got there on Wednesday morning. Morris met us. We went right to Cornwall. And, of course, 250 miles in this country is a lot different to 250 miles over there. It's an all-day deal.
Yeah.
But going on the way down, we stopped at Stonehenge and Salisbury Cathedral. And
the boys would love that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We got the whole bit, And then we stayed in Cornwall for Wednesday night and Thursday night. And then on Friday, we started back up, and we got to London Friday night. And Morris had to go back to the base.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Because he was leaving for Italy.
Oh.
And so then we had Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday in London and around.
Right.
So we spent one day at the Tower, and we did the Tower. We couldn't see the Crown Jewels because the place was being renovated, and the Queen was going to open it the 23rd of April, so we didn't. But the only person who was disappointed was me, because I knew what they were missing.
Yeah.
But we, the Tower... Next trip. We did St. Paul's Cathedral. We didn't get to... A lot of places we couldn't get to time. Took them to a couple of shows, and you must go to the theatre in London. There's nothing like it in the world. And they had I'm getting the kids indoctrinated into theatre, because I love theatre.
Yes.
And they love it. They love theatre. And so we saw it. But they didn't see what I wanted them to see, but we went anyway. And so we crammed as much as we possibly could.
Do their boys, do they talk about it now?
Oh, yeah.
They'll say Graham. I don't know what they call you. Graham.
Nanny.
They say Nanny. I remember when we were... Yeah, they'll do that. Oh, it's such a... I think you said 13 and 16.
They are now, so they were 12 and 15.
And I think young teenagers are wonderful traveling people, because they have such a curiosity.
Oh, yeah. We did an awful lot. We didn't...
short time.
Yeah, we went to Windsor. Took a day trip out to Windsor, so they could see as we went by. They saw Runnymede, and of course the poor kids. Every time, I'd give them this is where Magna Carta was signed. They get this, and I was wailing. I was saying, "Oh, Trevor, we didn't get into Westminster Abbey." He says, "Well, Nanny, I'm about cathedraled out."
Is that what he said to you? Yeah, I'm about cathedraled out.
I said, "You've only seen 3."
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love it. But that's nice. You've kept in touch so with Morris too.
Oh yeah.
And the kids like him, I'm sure. Too,
oh yes. They love him. Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing, I think, to have relations like that. That means so much, and will continue. Is your brother alive still?
Oh yes, he's 7 years younger than I.
Yeah, and he's.
Oh yes, he's. I haven't seen him since Rudy died, because unfortunately his wife is battling cancer and has been for years and years and years. And
a long time.
A long time, and but we keep in touch. We telephone, but she doesn't feel like company. And
well, no, it's probably too hard for her.
yeah,
you know,
she's undergoing radiation again. And but hopefully she was clear for 7 years.
And then
it came back, and it's come back twice.
That's a bugger.
So, and they were in Florida this year, and he had to fly her back. They drove down, and 28th of February, he had to get a plane, put her back, and then he had to drive home alone. And so we call, but she's undergoing chemo, and it seems to be
helping. Well,
helping.
That's,
who knows?
That's really tough.
But no, my brother and I are closer than my sister, and I think there's more space between us. 7 years, and we always got along pretty well. My sister and I fought
a lot, but But
now, as age is mellowing her or something, she's getting more family oriented.
Yeah. You kind of work it out. But you and your brother have always been kind of close.
We're close. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's.
And Connie was always sort of odd man out, but she's sort of getting more family oriented.
Well, everything has a way of working out.
Oh yeah. Well, that's all we are. I have no family.
No. Do you feel that you're still? Do you feel you're an American or still English? What do you feel?
Both. I'm both.
Yeah, kind of both.
I'm definitely English. Definitely.
Still, I feel in your heart.
Yeah, and I only spent 14 years of my life in England, but it was my growing up years.
But your ties, your heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's home, but when I'm over there.
It's home.
Then this is home. When I'm over there, I talk about home, and I mean here.
Yeah.
So it's both.
I don't know why you can't have both. Do you?
Oh, I don't either.
I really don't. I think I agree with you completely. I think your growing up years makes such an impression on you for the rest of your life.
Oh, it does. From the age of 5 until you're 19.
Yes,
I was in England.
It does.
But that was all I was in England.
Yeah.
And but it's still.
There's still a part of you that's there, Joan.
Oh, definitely.
I have a feeling,
Yeah, and I'm down to two girlfriends now. And,
but nevertheless.
Yeah, and their husbands,
Well, it's
strange because this is home too. I mean, somebody said, "Would you go live in England?" And I said, "No, I'm so American."
Yes, but
I think American, talk American, sound American.
Well, you really don't sound that American.
I do in England.
Yeah,
I keep wanting to say, but I'm one of you. They think I'm American.
Yeah, they think yeah.
When I open my mouth.
Oh, that's. Well, of course, Kathleen loves the cabins.
Oh, yes, she's firmly going to run them. That's why I'm hanging on to them.
Because I would imagine, as far as you're concerned, that, hey, you probably could do without them.
Oh, I could, but then on the other hand...
Yeah, you're kind of glad to have them.
That's the only thing left of Rudy, once they're gone.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, I think.
Yeah, it is. And plus Kathleen.
And Kathleen and the boys.
And the boys. And so, hey,
they'll be the last to go if we have to get rid of them.
I can see that. But I know I've always heard Kathleen. Oh, cabins.
She just can't wait to live up there year round. And she wants to open them and run them year round. Well, I said, good luck to you, dear, if you want to do it.
She's quite clever. Very handy, people tell me, that she can do about anything.
Yeah, she's like her father's daughter. She can build and she gets that
from Rudy.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever, what it calls for, she can do it.
She can do it. She can do plumbing, and she can do, she's a carpenter and self-taught, but she does all sorts of woodworking. And she's dyslexic, which we didn't even know.
Is that right?
Yeah, she has a hard time. And you'll see her standing there with a wrench, and you'll see her going like this, now which way does it turn? And Trevor's severely dyslexic.
Is that, you inherit that, Joan?
I think you must. I never even knew the word. We didn't know Kathleen was dyslexic.
No, but of course now you hear it all the time.
Well, she took Trevor to be tested. She kept saying that there was something wrong, and she finally took him, got the testing. It's very difficult to get. And she was tested herself.
And they picked it up.
Yeah, and we never even knew it when she was going to school.
I don't think it... Well, I know it was there, but people didn't have it diagnosed, or was kind of like all these other things.
It's very frustrating. She said it was very frustrating growing up. They said, no, you can do better. You're just not applying yourself.
And so she had to live with that all the years. With that.
And she's got a different makeup than Trevor. Trevor resents it, and he's frustrated, and his attitude isn't the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he hates every living minute of school.
He does.
Yeah.
But now she took it in stride, even she was having these problems, and it had to be hard.
Yeah. And she's gone back to school. She's community college down there. I don't know how she does it. Yeah, she wants to be a physical therapist aide.
Good for her.
Yeah, I don't know whether she'll, because it takes her so long. She's got the kind of dyslexia that it goes to, she can read. She said all of a sudden when she's reading, won't make sense. And then she realized what was happening. She'd read to the center of the page, and then she'd go back to the beginning of the next line. Ooh. So then she has to go back and force herself over the center of the page to the rest of the line. So it's taking her twice as long to get her stuff done. But she gets it done.
Were you aware there was a problem?
No, we had no idea.
She kept going and never complained or didn't say, "Mom, there's something, I just don't," but she didn't.
No, we never, we just assumed, that some children like school, some children don't.
Yeah.
Some children, Jeanette was a good student. She had to work for her. But see, and we just assumed that Kathleen was just, balky or doing her thing. And,
And here was a real problem.
Yeah, which we didn't even know about.
But
how would you know,
No, I suppose today they would have picked it up.
Oh, I'm sure.
Although
she had to fight tooth and claw to get Trevor tested and so forth. And
she did.
She still has to fight. He has what they call an IEP, Individual Educational Program.
No, I'm not familiar.
He's supposed to have special help. He's supposed to have an advisor, an advocate, or whatever they call it. And when he goes in for a test, he has to have somebody there to read it. He'll pass a test. He'll get A's as long as there's somebody there to read it. But if he's left to read it himself,
he can't do it.
He'll fail. And she has to fight tooth and claw to get them to follow his IEP.
Boy, that's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. He wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't, neither one of the children would be anywhere without Kathleen. She is something else.
Is that right?
Yeah. The school told her they'd never seen a mother so involved with her children.
But she does. She works right along with them.
Every minute. And
aren't you pretty proud of her?
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Growing up, I never would have thought. She's a product of the 60s, the rebellious 60s.
No, at her age, that would be just about right, yeah.
Yeah, but she's marvelous as far as I'm concerned. She's something else.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, she is.
I was trying to think, did Rudy become aware of all that as well?
I don't think he...
Oh, because the time wasn't right, was it?
No. See, Rudy was sick from 83.
Yeah.
And so he didn't...
He really didn't see Kathleen kind of bloom.
No, he didn't. And he didn't know about the dyslexia.
No.
No.
About the problem that was there.
Because it was beyond his comprehension by then.
By that time, yeah. Because, of course, I know Jeanette was a wonderful student.
Oh, yeah.
And certainly I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She was only 20 when she died.
I know.
Yeah.
I know it was.
But it was, and that was something to get over, too.
Well, I don't imagine you ever did.
No, you don't.
And I'm sure Rudy did.
And it was terrible for Rudy because you had to get over this blame if I hadn't taught her to hunt.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that you never... You read that all the time, and I certainly...
No, it was quite the worst thing that ever happened, I think.
Oh, I'm very sure it was.
Yeah, because we had a lot of things. My life has always had great highs and lows.
Yeah.
And great lows. But,
yeah.
Hey, you survive.
Well, I guess we don't have much of a choice,
do
we?
No, you do what you've got to do.
But I guess I feel you have to just remember the good and
yes,
forget the bad. And hey,
I've enjoyed Colebrook. I can't imagine living anywhere else, really.
Yeah, I think Colebrook was very lucky to have you come, and I imagine when you came, people up here thought, "My heavens, what has Rudy done?"
They did not. It was so funny. They didn't understand me.
No, I bet they couldn't understand you.
No, they couldn't.
No,
and I couldn't understand why, because I didn't have an accent. I didn't.
You didn't. But
no, and I didn't have a dialect. I mean, the Scottish or the Yorkshire or the Cockney. I had none of that.
No, they couldn't. No.
I remember Sherwood Carby. I went he was in the store, and I went in and I said, "Do you have any jam?" And he said, "No, I'm sorry, we have no gum." And I thought, "Oh, never mind, And no matter what I said, it was wrong. You know, Mrs. Bryant down there at the dry goods or whatever you call it store, remember
Yes.
where the Howards is?
Yes.
And, or near there, I think it was.
No, is that Mary?
Yeah. And,
the Five and Dime.
Yeah, the Five and Dime. That's right. And I went in there, I wanted some thread. And I can't sew. I despise sewing, but I figured I should have a little thread sew on a button or something. And so I went in and I said, I'd like to buy a reel of cotton. I mean, that's what we call it, cotton, and a reel. And she said, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any. You know, I thought, well, never mind, you know. So and that's the way it was, you know. It just, no matter what I said, it was wrong. And of course, everybody knows about colloquialisms.
Yes.
And there are phrases that are perfectly acceptable in England that are absolutely not acceptable in America.
Well, maybe we've got a little example.
Well, I got one that was earth-shattering. And,
is this going to be a bad one?
No, it was just earth-shattering.
Yeah, okay.
And there was this woman up at camp, and dead now, poor thing. But anyway, she was a bit of a pain. She shouldn't have come. You know, the men were so nice, and they'd love it up at camp. And then they'd bring their wives.
The wives hated it. No.
Well, this one was carrying on about, she didn't want to get up early, because, you know, I used to get up at 3:30 and have breakfast on table 4:30, and they used to go hunting. And she didn't want to get up at that time, and she wanted to. So
have breakfast a lot later.
You know, if you don't have to get up? Well, she wanted to get up because she wanted to go shopping.
Oh.
So it's perfectly acceptable at home, and here are all these people. So I said, oh, well, Rudy will come down and knock you up in the morning. It's perfectly acceptable. Well, there was this dead silence. There were about 15 people there at breakfast, you know.
I bet you could have heard a pin drop.
You could. And then Rudy said, she doesn't know what she said.
No, that is funny.
That was the worst one.
That was the worst.
Yeah.
That is, I bet you never lived that one down.
No, I didn't live that one down for a long time.
No.
But it's perfect. In fact, there's in the old days, the factories, you know, getting up in the morning and all this stuff, Lancashire, the cotton mills and stuff. They used to have an official knocker up. He used to go with this long broom and hit the windows to wake people up in the morning for the morning shift, you know, dawn and all this stuff. So it's a perfectly acceptable phrase.
Yeah, did you continue on with that about the knocker upper?
Oh, God.
You know, I can just picture this one gone from bad to worse.
Yeah, it was awful.
Oh, that is funny. I bet Rudy never got over that.
No, and of course I was fair game to be teased.
Oh, I can imagine.
I was fair game.
Because I imagine you kind of fall for some, you know.
I'm very gullible.
You know, I bet if they said something, you know, you'd think they would.
Oh, absolutely. Then I didn't believe anything.
Then you went the other way.
Any man
anything.
told me anything, no matter what, because there was mostly men up there. And I just never believed anything the first time around.
Yeah, that's...
Because they used to tell me, Rudy was the worst.
He'd tell you tales, no more truth to them at all.
He'd say, well, you know, we don't have insects in England. You know, we don't have screens, and we don't have screen doors, and we don't have poisonous snakes, and we don't have skunks. You know,
why is that?
I don't know, but we just don't.
Yeah,
we just don't have them. And so here I am, first year over here, pitch dark up at camp, you know, and here I am used to street lights and up at camp, you know, can't see a thing. And you know the tree toads, the things that go.
Oh, sure.
You know,
I know tree toads. Yeah.
Never. I didn't have any idea.
What?
So I said, "What's that noise?" So he said, "Oh, you've got to be careful of those." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, they come out in the spring," and he said they're a cross between a bat and a rattlesnake, and they fly in groups of 8, just at the height of a man's neck, and they feed on blood. Well, jeepers. That thing was in the bedroom. He was hoisted by his own petard because I made him put on the lights, look under the bed. And then years later, he showed me this little thing,
Did he laugh?
Yes. Oh, he would tease me. He told me I'd never seen ice and snow. And,
no, any of this.
And so, of course, with the washing, you know, I had room for 32 sheets on those lines.
Oh, wow.
And so he's, you know, it's cold. So he said, did you get the laundry in? Did you leave the sheets on the line? I said, yeah, they weren't dry. No dryers or anything those days.
No.
So he said, oh my gosh. I said, what? He says, well, you know, they're going to, he said, everywhere where there's a crease, he said, they're going to break because they've frozen. Well, you know, I worried all night that those stupid sheets were going to be broken everywhere they froze. And, he told me to get hot ice, you know, that you put the ice outside and it's so cold that it freezes and it's hot ice.
He didn't
Oh,
he
he
have
was
fun?
terrible. Oh, he had a wonderful time. Logan Hurst, you know, she was more gullible than I, the Southern, remember Logan?
Yes.
Smokey and Logan.
Yes.
She was saying, I can't do a Southern accent, but she said, Rudy, what happens to the fish in the winter? And she said, don't they get cold? And he says, no, they grow fur. And she said, they do? And he says, yeah. He said, I'll catch you one. Well, doggone him, he went and he got a trout. And we had a black spaniel in those days. He took the fur, I must say it did look real on one side. And he chopped up Dixie's fur. And he took airplane glue and he rolled that silly fish. And it really looked like it was growing fur.
Oh, that is funny.
So he said, there you are, see, fur-bearing trout.
That is funny.
And she lugged that thing down to Sliver Bundle's barber shop, you know.
Yes.
And
to show it.
The fur-bearing trout from Clarksville Pond.
Oh, my God, that is.
Yeah.
I've never heard. I love that story.
Oh, yeah. He was a tease.
And laugh.
Yeah, and laugh. Oh, that set him up, you know.
Oh.
Smokey said, you son of a gun. He said, I had to stay up half the night convincing her there was no such thing as a fur-bearing